What if I told you that Joseph Murphy discovered something so specific, so precise, that he refused to publish it in any of his books? Not because it didn't work, but because he understood something fundamental about how the human mind receives and processes sacred knowledge. There are certain truths that lose their power the moment they become common. And what you're about to discover today has been kept deliberately quiet, passed down only in private conversations between Murphy and his most committed students until now. I know what you might be thinking. You've heard about Joseph Murphy. You've read The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. You've tried affirmations, visualizations, gratitude journals, and maybe some of it helped, maybe a little, but something was always missing, a piece you couldn't quite identify, a gap between the practice and the result that nobody could fully explain. What I'm sharing with you today is that missing piece. And once you understand it, everything else you've ever learned about your subconscious mind will finally click into place. But before we go any further, please hit the like button right now and tell me in the comments where in the world you're watching from. It always moves me to see how far this message travels. And if you haven't already subscribed to this channel, do it now and turn on the notification bell. Because what we explore here isn't surface-level inspiration. This is the deep mechanics of consciousness. This is the real work. Now let me ask you something that might be uncomfortable. Have you ever had a moment, a quiet moment, maybe lying in bed at night, where you just knew something was about to change, where you felt something shift inside you that you couldn't explain? That feeling wasn't random. That wasn't your imagination running away from you. That was your subconscious mind doing something extraordinary. It was accepting a new assumption, and in that moment, without you even realizing it, you activated a process that Joseph Murphy spent his entire career trying to explain to the world. Here's the problem. Most people experience that feeling and then immediately destroy it. They wake up the next morning, look at their bank account, look at their circumstances, talk to the wrong person, and the feeling evaporates. The assumption dissolves before it ever has a chance to harden into reality. And they go back to living the same life, wondering why nothing ever changes, why the law of attraction works for some people and seems completely deaf to their prayers and efforts. What Murphy discovered, and what I'm going to share with you today, is why that happens. And more importantly, the 3 specific words that prevent it. 3 words that must be spoken in a very particular way, at a very particular time, under one condition that most people will find almost impossible to accept. You must never say them to another living soul. Stay with me, because I know that sounds counterintuitive. We live in a world that worships sharing. Share your journey. Share your goals. Share your manifestation wins on social media. Tell your friends what you're working toward. Build accountability. But what if everything you've been told about sharing your dreams is actually the very reason those dreams keep slipping through your fingers? What if the moment you speak your deepest intention out loud to another person, you don't just share it, you surrender it? That's not a metaphor. That's the actual mechanics of how your subconscious mind works. And Murphy proved it, documented it, watched it happen in case after case after case across 4 decades of work with real people facing real impossible situations. Let me tell you about a man Murphy worked with privately in the late 1950s. This man was not wealthy. He was not successful by any visible measure. He was a postal worker living in a 1-bedroom apartment, drowning quietly in the kind of mediocrity that doesn't feel dramatic enough to call suffering, but slowly crushes the life out of a person nonetheless. He came to Murphy not because he believed anything could change. He came because a friend dragged him there. He sat in Murphy's office with his arms crossed and his jaw set, radiating the energy of someone who has already decided that hope is for fools. Murphy didn't try to convince him of anything. He simply asked him one question. If you woke up tomorrow and everything was exactly the way you actually wanted it to be, what would be the very first thing you noticed? The man thought about it, and for just a moment, the armor cracked. He said he would wake up without that feeling, That heavy, pressing feeling in his chest that had been there every morning for 11 years. Just that. Just the absence of that weight. Murphy told him 3 words. Told him exactly when to use them and under what conditions. And then he said something that the man never forgot. He said, "Do not tell your wife. Do not tell your friend who brought you here. Do not tell anyone at work. This is between you and the deeper mind within you. The moment you invite another person into this process, you are no longer working with your subconscious alone. You are now working against the combined weight of their doubts, their past failures, their inherited beliefs about what is and isn't possible for a man like you." 18 months later, that postal worker had started a small business that within 3 years would make him more money than he had ever imagined earning. Not because the 3 words were magic, but because he understood what they actually did to the architecture of his inner world, and because he kept them sacred. If this is resonating with you on a level that goes deeper than just finding the information interesting, write in the comments right now, "I am ready to receive this." Because something in you recognizing truth is itself part of the process we're about to talk about. Now let me explain what's actually happening in your subconscious mind when you operate from your current state versus what happens when you apply these 3 words correctly. Because without understanding the mechanics, the words themselves are just sounds. And Joseph Murphy was very clear about this. He wasn't teaching superstition. He wasn't offering spiritual comfort to people who needed something to believe in. He was documenting a psychological and neurological phenomenon that operated with the precision of a natural law. Not sometimes, always. Here is what your subconscious mind is doing right now in this moment and in every moment of your life. It is scanning everything you experience, every thought, every feeling, every conversation, every environment, and it is drawing one single conclusion. Is this real or is this imagined? And here's the part that changes everything. It cannot tell the difference. Brain researchers have confirmed what Murphy was observing decades before the technology existed to see it. When you vividly imagine an experience with genuine emotion, your brain activates the exact same neural pathways as when that experience is physically happening to you. The subconscious mind does not have a category for the difference between vivid internal experience and external physical reality. To the deeper mind within you, if you are feeling it, it is real. If it is real, it is now. If it is now, it becomes the foundation of the reality it constructs around you. This is why desire doesn't work. When you want something, when you hope for it, when you wish for it, you are feeling the absence of it. You are feeling the distance between where you are and where you want to be. And your subconscious registers that feeling as its instruction. Not your words, not your affirmations spoken without conviction. Your feeling. Your actual felt sense of what is real and what is true about your life right now. So when you spend your morning saying affirmations while feeling fundamentally unchanged inside, your subconscious ignores the words and responds to the feeling. And the feeling says, "I don't have this yet." And so your deeper mind, faithful and precise as any law of nature, continues constructing a reality that matches that feeling of not having it. This is the trap that Murphy watched thousands of people fall into. And this is what the 3 words are designed to dissolve entirely. Write in the comments right now, "I understand the trap." Because recognizing where you've been operating from is the beginning of operating from somewhere entirely different. The 3 words are these. It is finished. Not it will be finished. Not I hope it will be finished someday. Not it is almost finished or it might be finished soon. It is finished. Present tense, complete tense. The tense of something that has already fully occurred in the realm where all things begin before they appear in physical form. Now I want you to notice what happens in your body when you say those words in relation to something you genuinely desire. Something specific. Something you've been carrying the wanting of for months or maybe years. Say it quietly to yourself right now. It is finished. I have exactly what I desire. It is finished. Did you feel something? A flicker of something unfamiliar? Or did your mind immediately rush in with a list of reasons why that isn't true? If your mind rushed in with the reasons, that's the contaminated program running. That's the accumulated weight of every doubt, every failure, every person who told you to be realistic, every morning you woke up and checked your circumstances and found them unchanged. That's what Murphy spent his life teaching people to override, because here's the truth that your logical mind cannot argue with. The version of you that already has what you desire is not a fantasy. It is not wishful thinking. At the level of infinite possibility, which quantum physics now confirms exists, every possible version of your life is equally real. The you that struggles and the you that thrives both exist in the field of potential right now. The only question is which one you are collapsing into physical experience through the consistent feeling tone of your inner life. When you say it is finished, and you say it correctly, with the feeling behind it, with the full sensory reality of having already arrived, you are not pretending, you are selecting. You are reaching into the field of infinite possibility, and you are claiming the version of reality that already exists there. And your subconscious, which cannot distinguish between vivid imagination and physical fact, accepts that selection as instruction and begins the extraordinary invisible work of reorganizing your external circumstances to match. This is not poetic. This is not metaphorical. This is the literal mechanics of how consciousness creates experience. Murphy didn't theorize this. He watched it happen in documented case after case. People who had been sick for years recovered. People who had been broke for decades found themselves surrounded by unexpected opportunity. Relationships that seemed destroyed beyond any hope of repair healed overnight. And in every single case, the turning point was not an external event. The turning point was an internal shift, a moment when the person stopped hoping and started knowing, stopped wanting and started having, stopped asking and started claiming what was already finished in the realm of consciousness. If you're feeling something stir in you as you hear this, write in the comments, "I claim what is already mine," because that stirring is recognition, and recognition is the beginning of everything. Now we arrive at the part that most people will struggle with the most, the part that separates those who transform their reality from those who collect information about transformation without ever actually experiencing it. The silence. Murphy was specific about this. He was almost severe about it. He told his students, "The moment you speak your sacred assumption to another person before it has hardened into unshakable conviction within you, you have invited their entire inner world into your creative process, and their inner world is almost certainly full of exactly what you are trying to transcend. Think about the people closest to you. Think about your family, your friends, the colleagues you trust, the partner who loves you. They are good people. They want good things for you. And they are also carrying decades of their own programming, their own inherited beliefs about money and what is realistic, about health and what is possible, about success and who deserves it, about dreams and what happens to people who chase them too boldly. Every single one of those beliefs lives in them as a felt sense of reality, a frequency. And when you share your tender new assumption with them, that frequency doesn't stay neatly contained inside their body. It enters the space between you. It enters the conversation. It plants itself in your mind in the form of a question you didn't have before. Well, maybe they have a point. Maybe I am being unrealistic. Maybe I should have a backup plan. That's not pessimism. That's contamination. And it happens so subtly, so naturally, wrapped so warmly in love and concern that most people never even recognize it for what it is. Murphy used a specific image to explain this to students. He said, imagine you have a small flame just kindled, barely alive, the most fragile possible beginning of something that could eventually become a great fire. Now imagine opening a window and letting in the wind, not a hurricane, just ordinary wind. That small flame doesn't need a hurricane to be extinguished. Ordinary wind is enough. The people in your life who don't understand what you are doing are not hurricanes. They are ordinary wind. And your assumption, in its early stages, is a small flame. It does not take malice to destroy it. It only takes exposure. This is why Murphy's instruction was absolute. Not most people, not strangers, Not just the negative ones in your life, no one. Because you cannot fully know another person's inner world. You cannot fully know what doubts live in them at a level below their conscious awareness. You cannot know what will happen in that invisible space between their consciousness and yours when you invite them in. So you don't invite anyone in. You keep the flame protected. You give it time to become a fire. And when it is a fire, when your assumption has hardened into something so solid within you that nothing external can shake it, then nothing external will need to shake it. Because by then, it will have already manifested. If you are understanding why silence isn't secrecy, why it isn't small or fearful, but is in fact the most powerful act of protection you can offer your own creation, write in the comments, "I protect my flame." Now let me walk you through exactly how Murphy taught his students to use these 3 words. Because understanding the principle is one thing, knowing precisely how to apply it is another entirely. And the how matters enormously. The first step is specificity. Murphy was relentless on this point. Vague desires produce vague results or no results at all. Your subconscious mind is extraordinarily powerful, but it requires clear instruction. It is not a genie that interprets your wishes generously. It is more like a master architect who can build anything you give it a blueprint for, but who cannot build from a description like something nice or something better. You must give it dimensions. You must give it detail. You must choose the specific thing, the specific number, the specific reality that you are claiming as finished. Don't say, "I want more money." Say exactly how much, down to the precise figure, and claim that it is finished, that you already have it, that it is already fully real in the realm of consciousness, where all things originate before they appear in physical form. Don't say, "I want better health." Name exactly what health looks and feels like in your body. What you can do. How you wake up in the morning. What the doctor says. The specific physical reality of it already being finished. Don't say, "I want a better relationship." Describe with full sensory detail the exact quality of connection, the precise feeling of being with this person, the actual texture of the life you are living together, and claim it is finished. Already done. Already complete. The second step is timing. And this is where Murphy's teaching becomes almost alchemical in its precision. There is one specific window of time in every single day when your subconscious mind is most receptive, most open, most willing to accept new instruction without the interference of your critical conscious mind. That window is the state you enter right before you fall asleep. That drowsy, heavy, drifting space where your body has grown still and your thoughts have begun to lose their sharpness, and the boundary between waking and sleeping becomes soft and permeable. In that state, your conscious mind, with all its objections, analyses, and reality checks, begins to go quiet. The internal voice that says, "Be realistic, that can't happen, who do you think you are?" starts to fade. And in that fading, a door opens directly into your subconscious. A door that is almost never accessible during your waking hours. And whatever you speak into that open door with feeling, with conviction, with the full sensory reality of it being already finished, gets absorbed without resistance, without argument, without the filters that spend all day telling you what's possible and what isn't. This is when you use the 3 words. As you lie there in that drifting state, you bring to your mind the specific thing you have chosen. The precise reality you are claiming as finished. You see it, not vaguely, not distantly, not like watching a movie. You step inside it. You see what you would see through your own eyes if it were physically happening right now. You feel what you would feel in your body, the specific physical sensation of it, the warmth, the lightness, the electricity, the particular quality of joy or peace or relief that this specific reality would produce in you in the moment you discovered it was real. And into that felt experience, into that full sensory immersion in the reality of it being finished, you say the words, quietly, internally if you prefer. It is finished. I have exactly this. It is finished. And then you let yourself drift into sleep. You carry that feeling with you into the darkness. You let your last conscious experience be the felt reality of what you are claiming is already done. Murphy found that people who did this with genuine consistency, not trying it a few times and abandoning it when nothing visibly changed, but doing it night after night with the kind of commitment you give to something you truly believe in, began to experience shifts in their outer world within weeks, sometimes faster, not because anything magical happened, but because their subconscious, having received the same clear instruction with emotional intensity at the most receptive moment of every day, eventually accepted that instruction as simply the truth of their reality. And once your subconscious accepts something as simply the truth, it begins doing what it always does with truth. It builds your experience around it. It filters what you notice. It guides your decisions. It shapes how you show up in every room you enter. And slowly, then suddenly, the outer world begins to reflect what the inner world has already finished. If you are ready to commit to this practice, not as an experiment, not as something to try, but as a new fundamental relationship with your own consciousness, write in the comments, every night it is finished. Now I need to speak to the part of you that is already preparing its objection. The part that is reasonable and measured and has been disappointed before. The part that wants to believe this but has evidence, accumulated personal evidence, that things don't work out the way you hope. I'm not going to tell you that part of you is wrong. I'm going to tell you that part of you is working with outdated information. Every disappointment you have ever experienced was the result of a process identical to the one we are discussing today. Your subconscious accepted an assumption. That assumption hardened into fact. The only difference is that the assumption it accepted was one you didn't consciously choose. It was installed by your circumstances, your past experiences, the collected doubts and fears of every person who ever influenced you. You have been manifesting your entire life. You have just been manifesting unconsciously. You have been letting the world write the program instead of writing it yourself. What Murphy discovered is that this process is not selective. It does not work for special people with particular gifts or rare spiritual sensitivity. It works for anyone who understands the mechanics and applies them with consistency and conviction. The postal worker with his arms crossed. The woman drowning in debt who chose a specific number and held it in sacred silence for months. The person watching this video right now who has felt for a long time that something more is available but hasn't been able to reach it. The 3 words don't care about your past. Your subconscious doesn't keep score of how many times you've tried and failed. Every night is a new door. Every drowsy drift towards sleep is a new opportunity to speak to the most receptive part of yourself and say, without apology, without hesitation, without sharing it with a single soul who might extinguish the flame before it catches, it is finished. I have exactly this. It is finished. Your circumstances are not your destiny. They are the fossilized remains of old assumptions. They are yesterday's consciousness made visible today. When you begin planting new assumptions tonight, when you begin speaking those 3 words into the open door of your subconscious with feeling and specificity and absolute sacred silence, you are not hoping your reality will change. You are doing the only thing that has ever changed any reality for any person who has ever lived. You are changing it from the inside first and trusting, with the deep trust that comes not from blind faith but from understanding the law, that the outside has no choice but to follow. Murphy said it this way, and I want you to sit with these words. Any assumption, however false it may appear to your current circumstances, if persisted in, will harden into fact. Not might harden, will harden. This is not inspiration. This is law. The only question remaining is whether you will persist, whether you will protect the flame, whether you will keep the 3 words between you and the deeper mind within you, sacred and unshared, until the morning you wake up and realize that what you claimed is finished has become so visible in your outer world that you no longer need to claim it at all, because you are living it. Write in the comments right now, I persist until it hardens into fact. Because that declaration, made here, seen by no one who can contaminate what you're building, is itself the beginning of the assumption taking root. If this reached something in you today, If something unlocked that had been closed for a long time, I want you to subscribe to this channel right now. Every video here is built on this same foundation. Not surface motivation, not inspirational noise. The real mechanics of how consciousness actually works, taught clearly, applied practically without anything left out. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because you won't want to miss what's coming next. Leave a comment and write simply, "This found me at the right time." Because it did. And there is something in that worth acknowledging out loud. And if this gave you something real today, share it by hitting that like button. It helps others find this work who need it just as much as you did. There is one more video right here that continues exactly where we left off today. It goes even deeper into what Joseph Murphy discovered about the specific feeling state that accelerates manifestation beyond anything most people believe is possible. Click on it now. The next piece of this is waiting for you. Now let me take you somewhere that most teachers of this principle never go. Because understanding that it is finished works is one thing. Understanding why it sometimes feels impossible to hold that state, why your mind fights you, why some mornings you wake up and the conviction is gone and the doubt is back and you feel further from your desire than you did the night before. That understanding is what separates people who eventually manifest from people who eventually give up. Joseph Murphy called it the interval. The gap between the planting of the assumption and the visible appearance of its fruit. And he said, more clearly and more urgently than almost anything else he ever taught, that the interval is where everything is won or lost. Not in the technique itself, in what you do during the silence between claiming and seeing. Most people treat the interval as evidence of failure. They plant the seed, they wait, they look at the ground and see nothing growing yet, and they interpret the emptiness as proof that nothing is working. So they dig the seed up. They start the process over with something smaller, something more realistic, something their logical mind can accept as plausible. And they wonder why the results they get are always so modest, always so barely distinguishable from what ordinary effort alone might have produced. What Murphy understood, and what took him years of observation to articulate clearly, is that the interval is not empty. The interval is the most active phase of the entire process. It is simply active in a realm you cannot see with your physical eyes. Beneath the surface of your visible circumstances, in the deeper strata of your consciousness, and in the invisible field that consciousness interacts with, enormous reorganization is happening. Connections are forming. Opportunities are being arranged. People who will become critical to your manifestation are being moved into position. Circumstances that need to shift before your assumption can appear in physical form are shifting. All of it happening silently, invisibly, in the sacred darkness where seeds always do their most essential work before they ever break the surface. Your only job during the interval is to not disturb the process. Your only job is to persist, to continue showing up every night in that drowsy, receptive state and speaking it is finished into the open door of your subconscious. To continue feeling the reality of it already done. To continue keeping the sacred silence. To continue being, as consistently as you possibly can, the person for whom this is already a settled fact of their inner world, regardless of what the outer world is still showing you. If you understand that the interval is not silence but invisible activity, write in the comments right now, "I trust the interval." Now I want to give you something practical, something concrete that Murphy gave his students to work with during the interval when the doubt became loud. Because it always becomes loud, that is not a sign you are doing something wrong. It is a sign you are human and your mind has been conditioned by decades of evidence that contradicts what you are claiming. The doubt is not the enemy. The doubt is just old programming doing what old programming does, firing, insisting, reminding you of everything that hasn't worked before. Murphy taught his students a specific response to doubt that did not involve fighting it, suppressing it, or pretending it wasn't there. He said fighting doubt gives it energy. Suppressing it drives it underground where it operates more powerfully than ever. Pretending it isn't there is a form of dishonesty that your subconscious recognizes immediately and distrusts. Instead, he taught them to simply acknowledge the doubt and then return to the assumption. Not argue with the doubt. Not defeat the doubt. Simply notice it the way you would notice a cloud passing across the sky, and then gently, firmly, without drama, return your attention to the felt reality of it is finished. He used the image of a compass. When you are walking through unfamiliar territory and you lose your sense of direction, you don't panic. You don't decide the destination doesn't exist because you momentarily lost your bearing. You take out your compass. You find north again, and you continue walking. Your assumption is your compass. The 3 words are your way of finding north again every time doubt, fear, or the evidence of unchanged circumstances temporarily disoriented you. You don't have to never feel the doubt. You just have to always know where north is. Write in the comments, I always find north. Because that small declaration is itself a form of returning to your assumption. A micro practice of the discipline we are building together. Let me tell you about something Murphy observed that he found both fascinating and heartbreaking in equal measure. He worked with 2 women at the same time, in the same period, who came to him with almost identical desires. Both wanted financial transformation. Both were in genuine hardship. Both were intelligent, capable women who understood the principles he taught quickly and completely. He gave them both the same instruction, the same 3 words, the same practice, the same timing, the same absolute requirement of silence. One of them followed the instruction completely. She was a naturally private person, and silence came easily to her. She did the practice every night for 11 weeks without telling a single person what she was doing or why. In the 12th week, a sequence of events began that she described later as almost impossible to explain to someone who hadn't experienced it. An unexpected contact, an opportunity that had no logical reason to appear in her life. A decision that felt obvious in the moment she made it. And within 4 months, her financial reality was unrecognizable. The other woman understood the principle intellectually, but found the silence psychologically unbearable. She needed to share. She needed to process out loud. She told her sister in the 1st week. Her sister was kind and well-meaning and said all the supportive things. But the sister operated from her own set of inherited beliefs about money and what was realistic for women in their family, and what tended to happen to people who hoped for too much. None of those beliefs were spoken directly. They didn't need to be. They lived in the quality of the sister's listening. In the slight hesitation before she said, "That's wonderful," in the question she asked about backup plans. In the story she shared about a friend who had tried something similar. The second woman walked away from that conversation and spent 3 days in the grip of a doubt so heavy she described it as physical. Like something pressing down on her chest. She couldn't return to the feeling of it is finished, because now the feeling was contaminated. Now when she lay in bed at night and tried to claim her assumption, her sister's hesitation was there in the room with her. The slight question in her eyes was there. The story about the friend who had tried and failed was there. She kept practicing. She tried hard, but she was fighting her own subconscious with one hand while feeding it doubt with the other. And after 6 months of effortful, painful, increasingly desperate practice, nothing had changed in her outer world. She came back to Murphy and told him the technique didn't work. He asked her one question. "Did you tell anyone?" She was silent for a long moment. Then she said, "Yes, he wasn't unkind. He didn't say I told you. He simply said, then you weren't doing the technique. You were doing something else. Something that looks identical from the outside but operates from a completely different inner state. You were hoping while pretending to know. And your subconscious, which is extraordinarily precise and cannot be deceived, knew the difference the entire time. That story should sit with you, not to frighten you. Not to make the practice feel impossibly fragile, but to help you understand with full clarity that the silence is not a footnote. It is not a nice suggestion Murphy added at the end. It is structural. It is load-bearing. Remove it and the entire architecture collapses. If you are understanding this at the level of real commitment, not intellectual agreement, but actual decision, write in the comments, "Silence is structural to my success." Now I want to address something that Murphy spoke about in his private teachings that almost never makes it into the popular understanding of his work. He called it the problem of the divided house, and it is perhaps the most precise diagnosis of why intelligent, sincere, genuinely motivated people fail at this work even when they do almost everything right. A divided house is what happens when you claim it is finished in your conscious practice, but continue rehearsing the opposite in your unguarded moments. When you do the night practice with genuine feeling and conviction, and then spend the next morning anxiously checking for signs that it's working. When you lie in bed claiming your financial reality is transformed, and then open your banking app with your stomach tight, scanning for confirmation that hasn't arrived yet. When you hold your assumption beautifully in the sacred space of your intentional practice, and then shred it in the 100 small unguarded moments of your ordinary day, where old habit and old feeling quietly reinforce the old reality. Murphy said the subconscious mind keeps a kind of running average. It doesn't just respond to your peak moments of conviction. It responds to the overall felt tone of your inner life across all moments. If 10% of your time is spent in the genuine felt reality of it is finished and 90% of your time is spent in the anxious monitoring of unchanged circumstances, your subconscious receives a mixed signal, and mixed signals produce mixed or absent results. This doesn't mean you need to be in a constant state of ecstatic conviction. That's neither realistic nor necessary. What it means is that you need to begin cultivating a general background tone in your inner life that is consistent with the assumption you are planting. A quiet, settled, almost casual sense that things are working out, that the invisible processes are in motion, that what you have claimed is finished is doing what finished things do, which is move toward visible form in their own time and through their own channels. Not anxious, not desperate, not constantly checking, just settled. The way you feel about things that are already so true and so established in your life that you never think to doubt them. Murphy called this living from the assumption rather than toward it. Most people live toward their desire. They are over here, the desire is over there, and they are reaching, straining, monitoring the distance. But when you live from the assumption, you are already there in consciousness. You are not checking whether it's coming. You are simply inhabiting the reality of it already being finished and allowing the physical world the time it needs to catch up to what consciousness has already established. Write in the comments, "I live from my assumption, not toward it." Because that shift in preposition is the entire teaching in 4 words. Here is what Joseph Murphy observed as the final, confirming sign that an assumption has truly hardened. He called it the moment of detachment. It is the moment when you realize you have stopped thinking about your desire with longing or desperation or anxious hope. When it has become so settled within you that you relate to it the way you relate to things that are simply and quietly true about your life. You don't walk around all day thinking about the fact that you have a home to sleep in tonight. You don't spend mental energy hoping it will still be there when you return. It is simply a settled fact of your reality, and you move through your day from the quiet confidence of that settled fact without ever consciously dwelling on it. When your assumption reaches that quality of settledness, Murphy said, you are weeks away at most from seeing it appear in your physical experience. Because that detachment is the signal that your subconscious has completed its acceptance. It has stopped treating your assumption as a new instruction. It is still deciding whether to integrate and started treating it as simply the truth of your reality. And once your subconscious treats something as simply the truth of your reality, reality follows. Always, without exception, with the impersonal precision of a law of nature that doesn't care whether you believe in it or not, any more than gravity cares whether you believe in it before it catches you. The 3 words have done their work. The silence has protected the process. The interval has been honored. The divided house has been unified. And the external world, which has always been nothing more than the mirror of your internal world, with a slight time delay, finally catches up and shows you what you have known in consciousness for weeks. It is finished. Write in the comments, it is finished. Not as a wish, not as a hope, as a recognition of what is already true in the realm where all things begin. If this reached you today at a level that goes beyond information, if something in you recognizes this as the piece that was missing, subscribe to this channel right now. Turn on the notification bell, because every video here is built on this same foundation of real depth, real mechanics, real transformation, without anything left out and without anything added that isn't true. Leave a comment and write, "This is what I came here to find." Because you did come here to find this. The very fact that you are here, that you stayed this long, that something in you kept listening when it could have clicked away, that is not random. That is your deeper mind already moving toward what you are about to claim. Hit the like button if this gave you something real. It takes 1 second and it helps someone else who needs this find it at exactly the right moment, just the way you did today. And the video right here continues this journey in a direction you are not expecting. It takes everything we discussed today and reveals the one remaining element that Murphy kept for his most advanced students. The element that makes the difference between an assumption that hardens in weeks and one that hardens in days. Click on it now. What you are building deserves the complete picture. Now I want to give you the piece that Murphy reserved. The piece that almost never appears in any book, any lecture recording, any second-hand account of his teaching. Not because it was hidden for dramatic effect, but because Murphy understood that certain knowledge only becomes useful once the foundation beneath it is solid. Give a person the advanced principle before they have internalized the basics, and it doesn't accelerate their results. It confuses them. It gives their analytical mind something new to argue with before the deeper work has had time to take root. But you are not at the beginning anymore. You have stayed through everything. You have felt the recognition that comes with real truth landing in a prepared mind. So now I am going to give you what Murphy called the accelerant, the specific internal quality that, when added to everything you have already learned, does not just improve the process. It fundamentally changes the speed at which assumption becomes visible reality. Murphy discovered it by accident. The way most profound things are discovered. He was working with a student who was applying the practice with complete faithfulness. The silence, the specificity, the night practice, the detachment, everything was in place. And yet the manifestation was moving slowly. Weeks had become months, and while there were signs of movement, unmistakable signs that something was reorganizing beneath the surface, the full physical appearance of what the student had claimed was taking longer than Murphy expected it to. He began asking the student detailed questions about the night practice. What exactly do you imagine? What do you feel? What is the quality of the experience you are having in that drowsy state before sleep? And the student described it carefully. He described seeing the outcome clearly. He described feeling the emotions of having it. Relief, satisfaction, a sense of accomplishment. And Murphy listened and nodded, and then asked one more question that changed everything. He said, "In that moment you are imagining, are you surprised?" The student thought about it and said, "No, not really. I am happy. I am relieved, but not surprised." Murphy said, "That is the problem." Because here is what he had observed across hundreds of cases without fully articulating it until that conversation. The assumptions that hardened fastest, the ones that moved from inner conviction to outer manifestation in days rather than months, all shared one specific emotional quality that the slower manifestations lacked. They carried the feeling of unexpected confirmation. Not just happiness, not just relief, the particular electric quality of something wonderful happening that part of you still cannot quite believe is real even as you are experiencing it. Think about the difference between these two inner experiences. In the first, you imagine receiving news that confirms what you already fully expected. You feel satisfied, peaceful, confirmed. In the second, you imagine receiving news that confirms what you have claimed. And even though you have been claiming it, even though you have been holding it as finished, something in you responds with a gasp, with the particular shock of joy that comes when something extraordinary happens, with tears that rise not from sadness, but from the overwhelming reality of something wonderful being true. That second quality, that gasp, that overwhelm, that almost disbelieving joy. Murphy found it to be the single most powerful emotional frequency a human being can generate in relation to a desired outcome. And he found that when that frequency was present in the night practice, when the student could genuinely access not just happiness, but astonishment at the reality of their assumption being confirmed, the subconscious responded at a completely different speed. Because here is what that feeling communicates to your deeper mind. It communicates total reality. When you are genuinely surprised by something, even in imagination, your nervous system responds as if it is actually happening. The surprise response is one of the most primitive and powerful signals your brain generates. It overrides the analytical mind completely. It bypasses every filter and every habitual pattern of thought and lands directly in the subconscious as raw, unmediated experience, as something that is simply undeniably, overwhelmingly real. This is the accelerant, not a new technique, not a replacement for everything you have already learned. The same 3 words, the same timing, the same specificity, the same sacred silence. But now, in that drowsy state before sleep, you are not just feeling the happiness of your assumption confirmed. You are feeling the astonishment of it. You are allowing yourself to be genuinely moved by the reality of what you are claiming. You are letting your body respond with the full involuntary electricity of unexpected, wonderful news. Your heart racing, your breath catching. The physical sensation of something so good it almost doesn't feel real even as it is happening. And you say into that feeling, with that feeling alive in every cell of your body, it is finished. Write in the comments right now, I feel the astonishment of it already being real. Because that act of writing it is already a small practice of the principle. A small rehearsal of the emotional quality we are talking about. Now Murphy went even further with this. He said the reason surprise is so powerful is not just neurological. It is because surprise is the feeling that exists at the exact boundary between what you believed was possible and what you are now experiencing as real. It is the emotional signature of a belief being transcended. And your subconscious, when it feels that signature, receives a very specific instruction. It receives confirmation that the old limitation has been crossed, that the old program has been overwritten, that what was previously filed under impossible or unlikely is now being filed under done. Most people practicing manifestation are feeling emotions that live entirely within the boundary of what they already believe is possible. They feel hopeful, which lives within possibility. They feel excited, which lives within possibility. They feel positive, which lives within possibility. But surprise lives at the edge of possibility and beyond. It is the feeling of the boundary itself being dissolved. And when your subconscious receives that feeling in relation to a specific assumption, it does not process it as a wish or a hope or even a conviction. It processes it as a memory, as something that has already happened and left its emotional imprint in your system. And memories, unlike desires, require no further processing. They simply are. They simply exist as established fact in the architecture of your inner world. And your subconscious builds your outer world to match your inner architecture with perfect and impersonal faithfulness. This is why Murphy called it the accelerant. Because it doesn't change the destination. It doesn't change the route. It changes the speed at which your inner world completes its acceptance of the new assumption. And once inner acceptance is complete, the outer manifestation is not a matter of if, it is only ever a matter of when. And when tends to be much sooner than the analytical mind believes is reasonable. If you are feeling something shift as you hear this, write in the comments, I give my subconscious a memory, not a wish. Because that sentence contains the entire advanced teaching in 8 words. Let me give you the complete practice now. The full integration of everything Murphy taught, assembled into the precise nightly process that his most advanced students used. This is what you are going to do tonight, and every night until what you have claimed is finished appears in your physical experience. You begin by choosing your specific desire, not a category of desire, not a general direction of improvement. The specific thing, the precise number, the exact quality of reality you are claiming as already done. You need to know it so clearly that you can step inside it in imagination with full sensory detail. You need to know what you would see, what you would hear, what you would feel in your body, who would be there, what would be said, what the quality of the air in the room would feel like in that moment of confirmation. Then you wait for the interval, the drowsy state, the heaviness of the body and the softening of the thoughts that tells you your conscious mind is beginning its nightly retreat and the door to your subconscious is swinging open. You do not try to force this state, you allow it, you rest into it. You let your body grow heavy and your thoughts grow loose, and you simply wait with quiet patience for the softening that always comes. When it comes, you step into the scene, not as an observer, as the person living it. You see through your own eyes, you feel in your own body. You bring the full sensory reality of the confirmation moment alive in your inner experience. The specific sight of it, the specific physical sensation of it, the voices around you, the quality of the light, everything that makes it real rather than abstract. And then you let the feeling rise. Not the managed feeling of someone trying to feel something, the actual involuntary feeling of someone to whom something wonderful and almost unbelievable is happening. The gasp in the chest, the eyes that fill without permission, the particular electric overwhelm of extraordinary good news that your body responds to before your mind has finished processing it. You let that feeling be as real and as full as you can allow it to be, and into that feeling, from inside that feeling, as the most natural expression of what your whole inner world is experiencing in that moment, you say the three words, "It is finished." And then you say your specific claim, what is finished, what you have, what is real, with the feeling still alive in you, with the astonishment still moving through your nervous system like a current. And then you sleep. You carry the feeling into sleep the way you would carry a precious and fragile thing, carefully, quietly, without disturbing it with analysis or doubt or checking. You simply let the last conscious experience of your day be the felt reality, the astonished felt reality of what is already finished. And you do this the next night, and the night after that, with the sacred silence intact, with the specific desire unchanged, with the commitment of someone who understands that they are not trying something. They are doing something. They are engaged in the most fundamental creative act available to a human being. They are using consciousness to select, from the infinite field of all that is possible, the specific reality they have chosen to inhabit. And they are doing it with the precision and the patience and the protected silence of someone who knows exactly how this works. Murphy said in his final years of teaching that the greatest tragedy he witnessed throughout his career was not people who never discovered these principles. It was people who discovered them, understood them, began applying them, and then stopped just before the interval completed, just before the assumption hardened, just before the outer world caught up to the inner world that had already done its invisible work. He said they were like miners who had dug 90 feet of a 100-foot tunnel and then set down their tools and walked away, convinced the gold wasn't there, unable to hear the sound that would have told them they were almost through. Don't be that person. Not after everything you now understand. Not after the recognition you have felt in your body while hearing this. Not with the specific desire you already know is waiting for you to claim it with full conviction and astonished feeling and absolute sacred silence. The interval will test you. The doubt will come. The morning will arrive when your circumstances look exactly as they always have, and the voice of old programming will say this isn't working, and you will feel the temptation to tell someone, to seek validation, to dig up the seed and check whether it's growing. In that moment, remember the tunnel. Remember that 90 feet of invisible work is real even when you cannot see what it is accomplishing. Remember that the silence is structural, and the persistence is everything, and the astonishment is the accelerant, and the three words are the law. It is finished. Say it now to yourself, not to me, not to anyone in the comments inside, quietly, with your specific desire held clearly in your mind and the feeling of its extraordinary reality beginning to rise in your body. Say it the way you will say it tonight, in that drowsy, sacred space between waking and sleep, with the conviction of someone who understands the law, with the astonishment of someone to whom the most wonderful thing is already happening, with the silence of someone who has learned to protect what they are building. It is finished. Write in the comments, I have crossed the boundary of what I believed was possible, because that is what you are doing. That is what this entire teaching has been preparing you for. Not information, transformation, not understanding the principle, becoming the person who lives from it. If this channel has given you something real, something that landed at a level that goes beyond the surface of inspiration, subscribe right now. Every video here is built on the same foundation of depth and precision and respect for your intelligence and your capacity for genuine change. Turn on the notification bell. Stay in this conversation because what we are building together here takes time, just like every real thing does, and the next layer is always waiting. Leave a comment and write simply, I found what I came here for. Because you did. And that deserves to be acknowledged. Not to me, to yourself. Hit the like button if this moved something in you. 1 second of your time that helps someone else find this at the exact moment they need it most. And the video right here is the one I recommend you watch next. Not because it is the logical continuation of this topic, but because it addresses the one remaining thing that tends to quietly undermine everything we have built today. The thing that operates below the level of technique, below the level of practice, below even the level of belief. The thing that determines whether any of this becomes real for you or remains, as it does for most people, permanently almost within reach. Click on it. What you are building is worth completing.